And honestly, it made the relationship between Wilson and Lucas.
Yeah.
They play partners,
Right?
Because Wilson, Lucas even says in an interview at one point, he's like, he's so beautiful. How can you not, kind of hard not to mind kissing him.
Yeah.
But their relationship, was helped along because of who Lucas is and who Wilson is. And the fact they had worked together briefly when they were 17 years old in John's and all of that stuff. But rounding back around to the idea that this person asked me how I created this relationship.
Yeah.
And I said, well, between two gay men, as if I wouldn't have a root of understanding for it. And how did I understand it? And I said, well, I understand love and I understand relationships. Yeah. So in my mind, there's no difference, is there?
Right.
Right. I'm just writing about two people who love each other and that are in a committed relationship. And I don't think I need to know anything more than that.
But is there something about needing to have LGBT representation in that particular film, in Elena and Dunn? I mean, you could have cast it differently.
Obviously, Elena couldn't because Nicole wouldn't have let me. But I didn't want to. Anyway, we were working on projects before that too. It's just But with Methhead, well, it's a big problem in the gay community.
Yeah.
Methamphetamine addiction. So, and it's based on a true story. My friend John W. McLaughlin. It's based on his story and several other people I know. So,
well, in my opinion, anyone who's dealt with someone that they love who suffers from addiction, this story is relatable.
Yeah.
You did so well in kind of writing the humanity of the struggle. And not only that, the people outside of the addict who are influenced and what they deal with. Yeah. And it makes sense now. You're saying, this is hitting right home. This is, my story. This is, someone close to me. Was that hard to create, having it be so close to home?
It's interesting because in the creation, it wasn't. I think it was, it might have been harder for John to share his story with me. We spent 2 days crying basically, through the process because he's a dear friend and I've known him for a long time. And it was hard. That part was hard.
And it's not your typical drug film or whatever, is it? It's more about relationships, right?
It is about relationships. I mean, most of what I do is I'm very centered on the characters and the relationships between people and how they interact and the subtleties and complexities of it, the gray areas between human beings. And the film also, because one of the characters in the movie is based on my brother-in-law, and I grappled with what being a loved one with an addict
right
meant and what that experience was. And where I felt I failed and where I felt I did what I could do. Yeah, sure. It's such a hard place. So there's no way for me to write a script and not have that be a deep part of the journey in the story. So even though the family is not front and center, they are very integral to the rise and fall and rise and of these human beings, Yeah. And the family that we put together for ourselves when we move away from home. And
absolutely.
The families are not right there. Those families that we put together for ourselves can either be supportive or...
Right. Detrimental to our growth. Absolutely.
Yeah. The writing process, I kind of get a little bit in my zone. And I don't sometimes even know when I'm writing I'm writing it, if that makes sense. I mean, I start with a treatment, so I have a template, but then I just start going. So... The impact of it didn't really resonate with me until we were on the set and there were just those little moments that happened where the actors hit everything right and, the camera, everything was intimate and I was there and then it struck me. And later when I talk about things sometimes now I'll be in a Q&A and I'll slip a little because it just strikes me all of a sudden. But the writing itself and putting it all together was about the goal, if that makes sense. It's really about the goal for me. So, in fact, it's funny because I wrote the first draft of the script and I sent it to John and said, here, what do you think of this? And he emailed me back and he's like, I just love it, Jane. He goes, and I love the way you had Pinky talk in the third person. Pinky's this character, this transgendered character played by Candace Kane. And he said, how did you come up with that? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, wait a minute. I had to go back to the script and check it out and go, wow, I did. I wonder why I did that. I have no idea why I did that. But she's talking in their third person through the whole movie.
This is another character in my head that just kind of made it to the screen. You know, you produced it, you wrote it, you directed it, you even edited this project. Why was it so important for you to have control of all the aspects of how the story was told?
Well, the producing is usually for me the default position, because if I want to get something made, you know, no one's out there making it happen for me. I have to make it happen for me.
Yeah.
And because I try to plan well in advance of pre-production, I'm actually out there booking locations, and you know, I'm doing everything before we show up at pre-production, so we have most of that stuff done. But I had a really strong producing team that I brought in that got us through the production, and I couldn't have done it on my own. I mean, they really came in, took over, made sure that everything was happening the way it was supposed to happen, and I had everything I needed, and I was able to put the director cap on and you know, focus on my actors for the duration. So that part is just, that's what I need. I need me to make my own movies. Someday I hope I have a producer who will actually go do a lot of that work for me. The writing, directing, and editing is, in my mind, the same. It's part of a long linked process.
Okay.
So you write the script, but I'm not finished writing. Even when we're on a set, we're making changes, and I'm crossing out and adding and shifting. I do a rehearsal process that has a lot of that involved as well. And then you get into the shooting, and then things change as you discover with your actors, you know, where you're going and problems that come up and that have to be solved with a smart, you know, answer. And then you get into editing, and it's the third part of telling the story. So I feel like it's not three things, it's one thing broken into three pieces.
I see.
And I love editing, so it's another part of the process that I love to do.
Yeah, you know, you're a rarity. There are a few people that I know who love editing, but it's not the part they love the most. It's very tedious. But
I like jigsaw puzzles.
Okay.
You know, I do crossword puzzles and jigsaw puzzles, and I like putting the pieces together. So for me, I mean, I can really get into a zone place where I'm just gone for hours at a time in my brain, watching the screen and figuring out how these pieces come together. And I also am very protective of my actors. So I feel like the only way I'm going to make sure that all their best pieces are put together is if I'm doing it myself.
Sure, yeah.
You know, so the discovery in the editing room is also part of the joy of it, you know?
Yeah, I love hearing the passion in your voice. Meth heads just sweep the film festivals with awards. We can't wait to see the film. When does it come out? How do we see it? Is there anything that we can do as your fans and listening audience that can help you move it forward?
You know, it's about spreading the word.
Yeah.
There's two things that can happen. It releases on June 26th, so it'll be on iTunes.
June 26th.
Yeah. iTunes and Amazon, and a platform called Yekra, which and I'm sure several other places, so a distributor that's putting it out. But when it releases, we need the numbers, so we need people, A, to go rent or buy or do both. We need people to talk about the film and recommend it to the next person.
Right. Meth Heads, again, Satin Lounge comes out June the 26th,
June
correct?
26th.
June 26th. It'll be on Amazon. It'll be on iTunes. We need you to help us in social media, get the word out. There's a website for it.
Yeah, themethheadmovie.com. Which will have all the information. Facebook has its Meth Head Movie on Facebook and Twitter. So
there's an outstanding trailer up there for you.
Yeah, there's a great trailer you can find on the website, and it'll it's basically, it definitely sets you up on the ride.
Absolutely,
for sure. But yeah, the more people can talk about it, share it, watch it, the better off we'll be. You know, when you're making little films like this and you're making hard films, the market is very small unless people support.
Right.
It's not like a comedy where everybody's rushing out, or even something like Elena Undone, which is a romance and there's all of that involved in it. This is serious
matter.
Stuff. Yeah,
right. This is serious stuff, and it's a story that needs to be told. And more than likely, we've all been touched by it with the 6 degrees of separation. Is it in some form or fashion? And we need to tell these stories so that we can educate each other what to do.
Yeah.
Right? How do you handle that? How do you handle